So pretty simple. Look, where we're at really today in the Sydney market is we're in the latter stages of the stabilisation phase. So you'll see here, this is just in my most recent property clock update, which I do quarterly. You'll see Sydney was at about the 5 o'clock mark. I'd argue it's probably right as of today, probably slightly moving on from the 5 o'clock mark, but that's sort of the latter stages of the stabilisation phase. So there are parts of Sydney that would be close to the 6 and others that would be sort of more towards the 4. So for the general part of Sydney, that's kind of where we're at. And you'll see here just in Sydney, the regions that I actually buy in. You've got the inner west eastern suburbs and North Shore definitely leading the charge there. No surprises there. That's kind of what's going on. Southern Shire and Northern Beaches are catching up slowly, and it's because of the demand in those areas for the lifestyle, and you've still got fairly good employment close to both of them. Then you have the inner south and St George, and I'd probably add Canterbury, Bankstown, inner southeast to that as well. Just lagging a little bit further behind there, but that's basically where the Sydney market is at as of today. Really, what's driving the Sydney property market is a few things. First of all, it's very low stock levels. Now, I should just let everyone know when I talk and say about stock levels, I don't mean units, I don't mean townhouses. I'm specifically talking about houses with land. That's what I'm talking about. You could probably add townhouses that have decent land components to that as well in well-located suburbs, but very low stock levels in terms of houses on land in well-located suburbs. That in Sydney is not improving, and it's probably going to continue to get worse because we have governments that don't know what they're doing in that regard. So that's set to continue. Now, along with that, raw undersupply of land. So Sydney is a very unique market in the way that it's geographically landlocked in every direction. So if people don't know what I'm talking about there, I'll explain it to you. So you've got Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park to the north, you've got the Royal National Park to the south, you've got the Blue Mountains to the west, and then obviously Tasman Sea to the east. So there's no more land that can be built in Sydney. There's literally only pretty much out towards Warragamba Dam and then sort of towards the Southern Highlands and then just sort of towards the Hawkesbury out that way, Richmond way. That's really the only part where the land is actually left. Everywhere else is already built. So it's probably 15 to 20 years supply worth of land out that way, don't get me wrong. But the minute it is gone, there will be nothing more. So that's what's happening in Sydney, and that's why everywhere where you can see basically a train line, there's just apartments everywhere around it. It's because there's so little land around there. And because of that, major infrastructure is driving a lot of the Sydney market. So if you look at especially the transport corridors in terms of major infrastructure and even the new airport, even the new, should I say, job precincts popping up in a lot of the inner suburbs of Sydney, that's driving a lot of demand as well. So I mean, I'll give you a good example. Like Burwood is a suburb that probably, obviously it's a part of the transport orientated plan, but Transport for New South Wales, for example, have a major office in Burwood. I've met people who work for their Transport for New South Wales in Burwood who are, I'd say, almost C-suites for the actual, should I say, government organisation. So, I mean, there's some very, very top-end jobs in these sort of residential suburbs that are well located. So that's a thing about major infrastructure. It is driving a lot of things, and the very low stock levels and raw undersupply of land is going alongside with that because the major infrastructure is creating further issues for the top 2 points. The final one I've just got here is fight for quality. So Sydney is a market of some quite wealthy residents, should I say. It'd be one of easily the richest cities in the world, by far one of the richest cities in the world. And I mean, this itself is driving people to basically fight over each other for quality assets. So I'll give you an example, particularly trophy homes at the moment are actually in very strong demand in Sydney. In there, trophy home in Sydney is like $30 million plus, to give you an idea, but there's actually a lot of demand for them at the moment. So people wouldn't think that, but there is. And it's also well-located homes in close proximity to transport or the job hubs. They're also in demand that are family dwellings. They're very hard to find at the moment. So that's kind of what's driving the Sydney market. These are things that are set to continue. Don't be surprised if these sorts of factors continue for the foreseeable at least 12 to 18 months. That's probably what's going to be going on here in Sydney.